And just for anyone who is joining us, we are bringing you breaking news on the war in Iran. First off, the breaking news we must tell you about is that a seventh service member, U.S. service member, has been killed in the conflict. The second piece of breaking news that we are following is that Iran has appointed a new supreme leader, and that is Mojtaba Khamenei, who is the son of the late Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. This man is in his 50s. I'm going to pull up his age right here, 57. He served in the Iran-Iraq War. He was injured there. He developed close ties with security and military services during the war, close ties with the IRGC, which we have heard from Courtney Keeley. He is the second son of the late Ayatollah. He is married. He has a son. He's been leading a secretive life. He's never given a speech, as we heard from Imtiaz. He's not really out and about. He's never held government office. He's been his father's assistant and first to counselor sign before becoming the supreme leader. He has also been teaching in a clerical school, essentially, effectively Ayatollah training. Not much here on public record, but many people that we are hearing from, including our own Imtiaz Tayyab and Courtney Keeley, is that he is much like his father, and that certainly Imtiaz characterizing this as perhaps the most antagonistic choice, antagonistic in the eyes of the U.S. and in the eyes of Israel. Let's go ahead and bring CBS News senior foreign correspondent Holly Williams into the conversation. She joins us from northern Iraq. Holly, what have you been seeing and hearing and gathering from your reporting?
Hey there, Lindsay. I think what's interesting here is that, at least superficially, this looks like a kind of choice of continuity, right? The son of the previous supreme leader. Of course, what we need to remember is that the Iranian regime, which is in a weakened state, perhaps the weakest it's ever been since the revolution of 1979, the regime wants this, needs this to look like continuity, certainly in the eyes of the outside world, but perhaps more importantly in the eyes of its own people. The question, I guess, is whether this really is continuity, whether this, the second son of the former supreme leader, will wield the same kind of power as his predecessors, or whether this is really window dressing and there will be other people inside Iran who are wielding that power. Of course, the background to all of this is that we still don't have a lot of clarity on what the end game of this war is for President Trump and for Israel. It seems they're seeking some kind of regime change, but what kind of regime change? Do they want a democratic Iran? Do they want a leader that they can do business with? Do they want, as part of that, a new nuclear deal with Iran? Even before this announcement about the new supreme leader, Israel made it clear that it will pursue any successor of the former supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. And Trump said recently that if the new leader doesn't get approval from us, that is the United States, he's not going to last long.
What other reaction are you tracking from where you are in the region?
Difficult to say. I guess the point to make is that so many of America's partners in this region didn't want this war to happen in the first place. They made it very clear to the United States that they thought that this war, that another attack on Iran, would be destabilizing politically and economically. So what we need to be keeping an eye on is whether they think that this choice, which is at least superficially one about continuity, is something that might bring stability. That seems unlikely given the comments of both Israel and President Trump.
Holly, days ago, President Trump told Reuters that he backs Iraqi Kurds launching an Iranian offensive. Where are we with that?
Yeah, so, I mean, this is part of the sort of confusion or lack of clarity around the end game. So we are in northern Iraq. We're very close to Iran's border. And there are several Iranian opposition groups that operate in this area. Some of them are armed. They represent the Kurdish ethnic minority, which is around 10% of Iran's population. Now, this past week, President Trump really encouraged those groups to launch a military offensive inside Iran against the regime. We spoke to one of those groups who told us that they were in touch with the US government. They told us that they perceived America and Israel's war on Iran as an opportunity for them to launch a military offensive against the regime. When we asked them if they'd received any promises of support, they said they couldn't answer that. It was too sensitive. Then yesterday, Saturday, President Trump said that he didn't think it was a good idea to send those Kurdish groups into Iran, and they weren't needed. But when we spoke to some of those armed groups today, they said, at least when we spoke to them, that they hadn't received any communication about that. They hadn't been told to stand down. They hadn't been told that a military intervention wasn't wanted. So that just all speaks to that confusion, including in this regime, about what the end game is for this war.
Can you give us, while we have you, a little bit more historical context on why they would view this as an opportunity?
So they're very much against the regime. We've filmed with a number of these groups. Many of their members, many of their fighters who've taken up arms are women. Some of them have told us that the reason that they left Iran is that they are women and that they think that women's rights are not respected or are limited in Iran. They're also members of that Kurdish ethnic minority, around 10% of Iran's population, and they say that their people inside Iran are oppressed, and they dream one day of living in a part of Iran that's majority Kurdish that has some degree of autonomy. Of course, when we think about temptations or motivations to get involved in some kind of military offensive in Iran, despite the fact that they are massively outgunned by the Iranian regime, they only seem to have light arms. Of course, the idea of some kind of help from the US, perhaps American air cover, that's a huge temptation, a huge motivation. The idea that they would be partnered up with the most powerful military in the world, the US military, to achieve their goals inside Iran.
Holly Williams, thank you so much for joining us on this breaking news.